the Platypus delivered 4,000 submissions to the state government today, calling for the $400 million Tilligra Dam project to be scrapped.
On the back of the Traveston Dam announcement yesterday, it's clear that dams are not the way forward for the future of water demand in Australia.
Tilligra is death to the Williams River, it's death to the economy of the Hunter, and it is death to water efficiency in New South Wales.
Queensland Premier Anna Bligh says the federal rejection of her government's planned Brisbane Dam will make it hard for any new dam to be built in Australia. That's music to the ears of Tilligra's opponents, who believe it would cause environmental destruction.
The Williams River is the only remaining healthy natural river in the Hunter. It has huge variety of habitat, huge variety of native species of fish, of platypus, of many really precious species. They have to be kept.
Geologist Graham Holt believes the cost of the dam has been underestimated due to difficult geology. His opinion is among the thousands delivered ahead of tomorrow's close of public submissions. But the protest was upstaged somewhat by dozens of people in their swimsuits calling for better Indigenous education. Never a dull moment in Macquarie Street. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was surprising when I arrived, given the level of damage of the car and the fact that the car broke up on impact, that these people are still with us. And as I say, I can only praise the ambulance for the job they're doing.
Parents, start a conversation with your kids. Plan out the trip for them and plan it with breaks in between. Now that equally goes for coming up into the Christmas break.
These silhouettes represent the increasing number of young homeless people in the Hunter.
58% are under 30 and 1 in 3 would be a child or a young person.
According to the Samaritans, it's a crisis Australia is struggling to come to grips with.
There's a sense of failure when you see whether it's a child from 0 to 8 or a young person from 14 to 21 who hasn't been able to succeed in our communities.
To raise awareness of the issue, the charity today chose to launch its Christmas appeal from a 1970s couch, the sort of thing that doubles as a bed for many homeless people.
Almost half the homeless people in Australia actually are not on the streets, they're living with friends and neighbours.
Meanwhile, other charities and organisations like Centrelink are joining forces to host a Hunter Homeless Connect Day at the Broadmeadow PCYC later this month. Today, they were manning the phones trying to get the big companies to donate goods while packing items already received. Anyone at risk of becoming homeless is being invited to go along.
They can meet up with essential services, people to help them with housing and accommodation or legal, financial issues, help looking for work.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Inside this funky-looking booth, scientists are working out ways to integrate more renewable energy into the grid. The $1 million research unit has been built at CSIRO's Energy Centre in Newcastle. It's developing ways to control a future power system that will manage coal-fired electricity along with increasing amounts of renewables.
So it's a way that we can have large amount of sun or solar and wind generation.
Other countries are closely watching the research.
This technology is perfect for India because we have large population who have no access to energy. About 40% of our population have no access to any electricity at all.
The technology should be ready to use in about 3 to 5 years, helping reduce Australia's reliance on coal.
We're certainly improving, so it's increasing, and with techniques such as this, the idea is to make it even easier for us to have higher amounts of renewables.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Springer Spaniels Katie and Joker have spent the last 2 days sniffing around for rabbits on Broughton Island.
If you look up there, it's really very nice rabbity sort of habitat, and we'll give it a check up there, eh?
Sounds good.
Come on, let's go guys, quick.
Much to their disappointment and the rangers' delight, the dogs turned up nothing, meaning the eradication program's been a success.
All indications are no rats or rabbits. We haven't seen any tracks, scratchings, diggings, dung. The dogs haven't got any whiff of any rabbit or rat.
A baiting program was conducted in August to rid the island of an estimated 5,000 rats and 1,000 rabbits. The dogs were then brought in to make sure the program was effective. Without them, it would have taken 3 years to confirm either way.
Imagine trying to walk that island, this island here at Broughton, yourself. You'd have, I wouldn't know, but 100 men and women couldn't do a better job than those 2 dogs.
The pests had a serious impact on Broughton after being introduced more than 100 years ago, and the National Parks and Wildlife Service is hopeful that now they're gone, some native species will start returning to the island.
They've dramatically changed the vegetation on the island by browsing on the vegetation, and they also compete with the seabirds for burrow space. And the rats, again, have a huge impact on the seabirds.
National Parks is confident neither the rabbits or rats will return to Broughton, but is asking visitors to ensure their boats and gear is free from rats and mice.
People may not know, they may not know there's a rat on the vessel or a rat wrapped up in their swag.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
A birdie on 18 was icing on the cake for James Nitties in a round which included an eagle on the par 5 14th.
Got off to a bit of a shaky start and made a good couple up and downs, a good couple putts for par on the first couple holes, and you know, it's nice to see one roll in from off the green for eagle. So it was a good kick start.
Following an impressive debut season on the US PGA Tour, Nitties is now a genuine threat at home.
This is sort of my off-season, but I love playing in Australia. It's my favourite event. But it makes it easier playing on the PGA Tour and then coming home, and you know the pressures. So it's good fun at the same time, and you get to do it around a local crowd.
Some of his fellow Hunter players weren't so lucky, with Lee McKechnie and Rudy Bezuidenhout finishing over the card, while Aaron Townsend was further behind late this afternoon. Former Muswellbrook professional Kurt Barnes will also go tiger hunting tomorrow following a solid opening round.
I reckon over par will probably be the cut. I don't know how many, but if I can go out and shoot another solid round tomorrow and be here for the weekend, I'll be very happy.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's no secret to those living near the Burwood Beach sewage treatment works that processing 40 million litres of Newcastle's effluent each day creates a big stink. But as part of a $49 million upgrade of the plant, Hunter Water has installed a biofilter that will force aerated sewage through organic matter and wood chips to reduce the smell.
Look, we've made some great gains in odour control in recent years with the soil bed filter, but there's still occasions where we get an occasional complaint, and we'd like to invest in that to make sure that we minimise as much as possible any impacts on our neighbours.
Lucky for you, it's not smell-o-vision because it's pretty stinky in here, as it normally is in a southerly across the suburb of Merewether. But Hunter Water says this new biofilter is going to reduce odours by as much as 95%. 5 hectares of land on the site is also being rehabilitated as part of the project. Meantime, Kevin Young says a leaked memo from a senior public servant which slams the proposed Tilligra Dam as being badly located and unnecessary is old news.
Look, it was a draft memo of views at that time. It wasn't a finalised memo.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Both sides of the Swansea Channel and Crown Land running towards Blacksmith Beach have been identified as perfect locations for major tourist developments. Tomorrow, the state government will advertise the sites and seek expressions of interest.
This is a result of an economic study by the councils here with Buchan Consulting, which recommended that there needed to be, and this is an ideal site for economic activity that would create jobs and bring tourists to the area.
A marina similar to the one at Nelson Bay is one idea the government is promoting, although the state is open to any development which would boost the suburb's tourism and create jobs.
We're trying to improve the overall amenity of Swansea. It'd be great if Swansea in actual fact was recognised as the gateway to Lake Macquarie.
But even if a marina is built at one or even across all sites, it won't make getting into the lake any easier, with ongoing dredging issues in the channel and the state government no closer to replacing the ageing Swansea Bridge.
The bridge is not in my area, thank God.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
This boy is a long way from home. The little black boy, or Jocko as he's also known, has been part of the streetscape since 1866, but we're now being encouraged to take more notice of him. There's no doubting the fact that it's a piece of Maitland's history, but it's actually based on American history. It was originally created to honour a 12-year-old boy who was so desperate to go into battle with George Washington that he stood on the banks of the Delaware River to hold his horses, but froze to death.
And that's how George Washington found him, holding the horses. That's why he's in the position with his right hand extended, froze to death, but still holding the horses. That's minding your post.
Enthusiast and author Wayman Lafall has dedicated his life to Jocko and travelled from the United States to see the statue and pass on that story.
But we want them to love him more by raising him up and really putting him out in the forefront.
And it seems he has some work to do.
Do you know what it means?
Not exactly.
So it looks like Neville off a TV series my stepdad watched.
It's part of the history of Maitland. It was a gift from America, I believe.
Do you know what the story is behind it?
No, I actually don't.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
It's a bit disappointed that the Sixers can't be here, but I reckon in the future that we'll be able to use this hall for all of our wonderful things that we can do.
It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars across Newcastle and the Hunter, so we know that it's doing what it needs to do in terms of stimulating the economy.
Newcastle would look a whole lot different if architecture graduates had their way. The final work of 36 University of Newcastle students has provided an interesting insight into the way things could look. Andrew Cavill has a plan to transform Horseshoe Park into a cultural and environmental centre.
It's a centre which includes exhibition spaces, looking at the various heritage and cultural aspects of Newcastle.
This design puts a very different spin on public housing, using vacant space at Newcastle West.
By bringing different types of people into the city and using the services of the city, it could actually really revitalise that part of town.
The students also have grand plans for a new library and a maritime centre. While some business people of the future presented their concept plans to judges this afternoon in the finals of a business studies competition, North Coast student Jasmine Pera took out the $1,000 prize for her idea to create a cafe using old cars.
Combi Cafe is a concept incorporating all the values and ambience of the Byron Bay area with a cafe and good food that is loved universally.
Aerial shark patrols like this one, which has been privately funded in Sydney for the last 5 years, have reported thousands of sightings. Following 3 serious attacks last year and concern over large amounts of bait fish this season, the state government will fund a trial of heli patrols at 51 beaches. Newcastle pilot Steve Bassick has been spotting sharks for years.
Shark tours are more popular by helicopter for us than the whale spotting season, and it's something that's here all the time. They're here year in, year out, and they're within 20, 30 metres of the shore, and I mean fish that are 15 to 18 foot long.
He'll apply to be one of the government's accredited spotters, but has already decided to fly the Hunter coastline free this summer as a community service.
We've introduced a regular call sheet into the aircraft that has all of the local surf clubs on it, right the way down to Caves Beach, right the way up to Tea Gardens Hawk's Nest. And if we do it, we have a spotting, we will certainly call from the helicopters mobile phone equipped.
The trial will run over the Christmas period and the Australia Day long weekend.
If we can prevent one fatality, or one bite, just one bite, we'd certainly be for that.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
I got injured last year before I was meant to play in the World Cup, so this is a first for me against the Poms and something I've always looked forward to. So I think it'll bring the best out of me.
Kingston Heath brought James Nitties to his knees on his very first hole, but he was keen to give as good as he got. And his putt was even better, a birdie to start his second round and retain a share of the lead. But as Tiger kept pushing ahead, James spent time making sure he didn't go backwards with some neat work out of the sand. And great work with the flat stick made sure he maintained pace. They came to watch Woods, no doubt, but the young Novocastrian was throwing up some eye-catching shots as well. Playing in the group behind Woods, Nitties wants to play with him at the weekend, and moving into outright second on 6 didn't hurt those chances. He would have been level pegging with Woods if more things had dropped his way. Although his putter refused him any favours, his ability to scramble with wedge in hand ensured he remained on Tiger's tail. If he can maintain this sort of form at the weekend, he'll be a huge threat. A late blemish saw him give up 2 shots to finish 7 under in a share of third and 3 strokes behind Tiger. It's a classic case of the have and have-nots, a small-time trainer against the might of a billionaire who owns an A-League football side and races trotters for kicks. But Billy Dawson wouldn't swap Special Albert for anything.
Yeah, he's had 14 starts for 14 wins on Newcastle. Never been beat yet.
The best of those came this time last year when Special Albert upstaged the lot to win the Newcastle Mile. An injury, a terrible barrier draw and a host of challengers say he can't defend it, but that doesn't worry Dawson.
It's a big ask back to back, but especially when we're not drawing the best. But as I say, you got to be in it to win it.
Billionaire mining magnate Clive Palmer doesn't take to being second best often, and after finishing runner-up last year despite protesting the end of the race, he's back to claim the crown.
Clive will be very keen to get revenge and win the mile, and he's a big chance of doing it. He's got an American pacer here, Lone Star Legend. It flies. It was a big win last week here.
The $60,000 prize purse makes it Newcastle's biggest race. That's not all they're chasing.
Our last 10 winners of this race have been invited into the Miracle Mile. The selectors will be here tomorrow night.
We form a very good partnership, and a lot of our men that suffer from advanced disease and on hormone treatment suffer from depression.
It truly was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Thousands upon thousands of garments, from vintage to modern, auctioned off for a mere fraction of their original worth.
It's absolutely fantastic. I've never seen anything like it. It's just, I could spend hours in here.
I'm actually well surprised at and how well it's set out, and oh yes, there's lots of amazing bargains.
The items were found inside a 64-year-old Newcastle woman's home after she recently passed away.
I'm interested in the handbags and the hats. The clothes are magnificent. She must have had a big wardrobe.
The 5 tons or 36 cubic metres of couture was crammed into 3 bedrooms and a double garage.
It's mind-boggling. I'd love to meet the woman. I can't imagine. And it's my first one I've been to, so I'm really excited to see how it goes and if I can land anything.
Not sure who the lady was, but she's got some beautiful stuff.
While we can't reveal the identity of the woman who owned all this, the family has revealed that some of the items came from a bridal store she owned in the 1980s, while everything else she simply collected following an incredible passion for fashion. Her hoard included over 100 mink coats, dozens of furs, bridal gowns, bags of jewellery, racks and racks of dresses, and there were scores of hats and fascinators, as well as plastic bags crammed full of clothes, not to mention rows and rows, even boxes full of shoes, and they were all snapped up for an absolute bargain. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Confidence isn't a problem for James Nitties, but like all golfers, chasing Tiger Woods in order to win is the biggest challenge of all.
You know, he's probably playing his B game this week and he's still, kicking all our butts. So I've got to play well, and I wouldn't say I'm going after him, but definitely, I want to play well and I want to beat him.
A good start always helps, and birdie on the first was just the thing. He looked solid over the first few holes, getting himself in great positions, only to let birdie chances slide by. With those around him moving the right way, Nitties knew he needed to get a rig along too, and the 8th provided another great chance. The question was, could he make it count? He gave himself a chance almost on every hole and threatened to go real low. When he reached 14, Nitties found range again to share second spot. After his poor finish to yesterday's round, Nitties was determined to end today on top of his game, but they just refused to drop. Even on the last, he had the chance to take the outright lead, but a 3-way share of top spot with a day to play has Nitties set for a huge final round.
I think people are getting to know what we're doing now, and this is one great way that the whole community can support us, whether they want to sell off some things from the back of their car boot or just come along for the day and enjoy the atmosphere, the bargains.
Even when you're a PGA Tour pro, it's not often you play in the last group on the final day. Even rarer when it's a chance to beat the game's number 1. But that's what faced James Nitties.
With these crowds, it's easily to get distracted. So, just hopefully keep them at bay today and play some good golf and try not to get too nervous.
Having birdied the first hole the previous 3 days, he needed great touch in order to make it 4 straight. Draining the putt, he remained locked in a 3-way battle up front. He gave that stroke up on the very next hole, but that only seemed to spur the Novocastrian on as he attacked the flag, literally. Having missed that chance, he needed a spark, and on 6, his putter got hot once again. Consistency was the key, and that was one thing Nitties couldn't keep rolling. That seemed to rev the young gun up, and he adjusted his sights again to kickstart a final round charge. But his last few holes were not as kind. He dropped back to 5th, but earned $60,000 for his efforts.
"99 years old, he's never been to hospital, and it seems there's nothing stopping Reg Jones.
They call me Ripcord Reg.
This was a birthday his family will never forget.
I'm a nervous wreck.
Have you ever heard of lawn bowls, Reg?
I play twice a week.
Not enough excitement for you?
No, I think jumping out of the players board.
Reg signed his life away, then it was time to get ready. He'd been through the motions before as a 95-year-old. This time it was for charity.
We transfer about 450 children a year to intensive care, and we need to find about $2 million a year to keep us in the air.
With his 2 daughters, 7 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren looking on, Reg waved goodbye. More than 4,000 metres later, it was go time. Reg spent a minute in free fall and reached speeds of 200 kilometres an hour. He touched down 10 minutes later.
Now that I've done it for these kids, look, I'm as happy as can be.
And Ripcord Reg plans to do it again when he's 102. Then he'll snare the world record. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
I'm not a yes person of the ALP. I believe that the most important role for any member is to stand up for their constituents, and that's what I'll continue to do.
The meeting started behind closed doors. Inside, 2 politicians, poles apart on the privatisation issue. In between, families concerned about the future of the Wallsend aged care facility.
I'm hoping that the Minister gets the message that what we really want is to keep this facility in public hands.
There is a process that is underway and a process that we have to and we will see through to the end.
Today, Minister for the Hunter Jodie McKay fulfilled a promise to flesh out the issues. Staffing ratios and concerns about the level of care again dominated discussions, but there was still no mention of a long-term care guarantee.
Look, we've established rigorous criteria that will be used to assess whether or not another operator can come in and provide the service.
Leonie Brodie wants that criteria out in the open. She believes her son Ben has the most to lose from privatisation. He requires extra attention that she fears might not be available.
I won't be happy until I hear that this place will stay as it is.
An announcement on the future of the facility is likely in January.
There are no guarantees in this process. You know, there are no guarantees that the state government will actually find a provider that meets the requirements.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Once our sporting shame, Energy Australia's stadium's much maligned change rooms have been reborn. They're now ultra-modern facilities incorporating recovery baths and treatment rooms, and the government claims they'll be the envy of the nation.
These are state-of-the-art, really fantastic facilities. Something that Newcastle can be indeed very proud of.
Mr Green and Minister for the Hunter Jody McKay inspected works today, along with members of the Hunter Region Sporting Venues Authority. Stage 2 of the Western Grandstand redevelopment is now complete, and even as the footings are laid for the stand proper, speculation continues of a funding shortfall.
And I can absolutely guarantee that this project is fully funded. It's sad that we get knockers trying to downgrade what is a first-class project.
Fully funded, it's exactly as we committed to, and it will be a fantastic facility once it's completed in 2011.
Won't be any trimming around the edges?
No trimming.
The $60 million project is also on schedule. The grounds protectors pleased with progress.
I can assure everybody out there that in 2011 they'll be very impressed.
The government is now talking up our chances of hosting major international events, even a bid for a World Cup football game.
The young amphibian was brought to conservation biologist Michael Marnie by the No Tilligra Dam Group. He confirmed it to be a stuttering frog, similar to this one. The species is listed as vulnerable.
In the last 20 years or so, a large number of the populations of that frog disappeared, and that's the reason that it's listed as a threatened species. Its occurrence, wherever it occurs, needs to be assessed.
The No Tilligra Dam Group and the Wilderness Society say the frog find proves a study of the area's flora and fauna, carried out over 9 days as part of an environmental impact report, was inadequate.
The things that is most concerning is that those 9 days were all in the same seasonal period, which was over November, December, January time. There was no analysis during the rest of the year.
Citing concerns more endangered species were missed, those opposed to the dam are calling for another, more detailed survey. Professor Marnie himself isn't critical of the original report, but says the discovery of the stuttering frog should pave the way for a targeted study.
It certainly requires somebody to go and confirm that, and to do some work to show whether the population is abundant and whether it's interconnected with other populations.
Hunter Water says the environmental impact report found 2 possible frog habitats, but both were considered too small and isolated to support a viable population. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Just far to the classroom can be testing for Connor Wink. The 10-year-old from Charlestown hasn't been able to see since he was just a few months old due to a rare condition. But thanks to his mum Tracy, that could be about to change.
You've got to do what you've got to do. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try at least once. So even if it does mean going to China.
Chinese doctors have agreed to try a controversial stem cell treatment on Connor. It's not approved in Australia. It costs about $40,000 and success is not guaranteed.
Mum wasn't happy that I lost my sight, so then they thought of something.
If the treatment does work, Connor will have to learn to read and write. He's already mastered Braille, but even with the help of a vision support teacher 10 hours a week, keeping up with the other students can be tough.
It's a lot slower to read Braille than it is to read print. And visually, so much of our learning is done visually.
The Winks have been fundraising for the past 6 months to pay for the treatment in March. Connor has been busking to raise the last few thousand required.
He has asked if what happens if he doesn't get anything out of it, and we just tell him that he'll just live his life the way he always has.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Most newlyweds opt for cocktails by the beach, but not the hunters Jean-Paul Bell and his wife Maggie. They spent their first weeks of wedding bliss in war-ravaged Afghanistan, delivering desperately needed medical supplies. The couple's journey was documented by Newcastle filmmakers Ian Hamilton and Anna Kelly. Today they were putting the final touches on the version of Honeymoon in Kabul that will be distributed internationally.
It's a film that should be seen by a lot of people, and it will be, and that's going to allow a different face of Afghanistan to be viewed by everybody, and I don't think we're seeing enough of that face at the moment.
While there's a serious tone to the documentary, its director says the journey was as much about unconventional medicine as conventional.
Probably the thing I love about the film is the humour, because John Paul's he's a clown. He does a trick right through the film that unites everyone from gun-toting soldiers to Afghan kids.
And the goodwill has continued long after the trip to Afghanistan. A charity known as Operation Kabul Children's Health was established following the couple's return and will be the beneficiary of charity screenings, including one in Newcastle on Wednesday.
I mean, we've created a charity to try and continue the same sort of contact and way of distributing funds and equipment back to Afghanistan in a much more direct way.
It's a wonderful thing to be able to do with a film.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Since joining Newcastle on day one more than 5 years ago, Matt Thompson has embodied the club's fighting spirit. Having won a premiership with the Jets, Thompson earned Australian selection and is the club's current captain. But after all that, he hasn't been offered a deal to stay.
I was shocked. My agent did contact Newcastle probably 2 or 3 times and to give them the opportunity to have first preference.
The first contact came 6 weeks ago, but the only offers have been from 3 other A-League clubs, with the new Melbourne-based A-League franchise tipped to have secured him for next season. It would make Thompson the 5th Jets captain in as many years to move on.
I would have loved to have some sort of interest from Newcastle, would have been great. But now look, I have to secure my future, mate, like I said, and I plan to do it this week. I love the place and I love the people. And, like I said, people have their reasons for doing things.
In the middle of all that, he has to concentrate on beating Wellington on the weekend, a team still largely riding a wave of euphoria following New Zealand's World Cup qualification. The Jets have a stack of injured players to assess, including Sean Rooney and a number of defenders. Tarek Elrich isn't even expected to be running until Friday. But whoever plays, the expectation will be the same.
They taught us a lesson a couple of weeks ago, so we want to do the same to them.
My first two races coming out of the blocks were a bit lazy. So I had to make up for the final. Couldn't let anything go wrong in the final.
He left Newcastle a month ago as a fringe Test player and has returned a regular starter for New Zealand. Junior Sow has surprised even himself. The powerful centre beat some big names just to start and quickly cemented his spot with some damaging displays.
It's a good feeling, and now I know what to do now, and I just finished that camp. I just want more and more.
He's already looking towards the Anzac Test against the Kangaroos, but club commitments come first and he'll remain on light duties until Christmas. A number of other Knights are making their way back to full health, including Player of the Year Isaac de Gois, who is seeing steady progress after a full knee reconstruction. He's not expected back until April, while Ben Rogers expects to be running in a matter of weeks after ankle and foot surgery. Although that's given fellow half Scott Giroux the jump on grabbing a starting spot, Rogers believes his delayed start to the pre-season won't really hamper his chances.
I don't think so, to be honest. No competitions are won this time of year, and I'll be there when the whips are cracking. I'll be all right.
A drilling contractor investigating sites for a new water main struck the gas line shortly before 9 o'clock this morning. A thick odour hung in the air and gas could even be seen venting from the ground at the back of the drilling rig. Police closed Macquarie Road at the roundabout, slowing traffic to a crawl. Firefighters say similar leaks have been known to catch fire.
They can if there's an ignition source close enough. The main thing in the early stage is to get everybody away from it.
Around 30 staff and customers were forced to leave the nearby McDonald's. Despite having plenty of food and refreshments, some of the staff weren't happy with the loss of trade and work time.
I was doing my rosters actually, so I actually need to be in there doing my work, so yeah, it's not that good for me.
Firefighters erected a weather station to make sure there was enough wind blowing to disperse the gas while efforts were made to excavate around the break. The drilling workers say they knew the gas main was there and had marked out its position on the ground, but somehow still managed to hit it. The main was eventually shut off to allow the repairs, with the road reopened at about 11:30. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The residents came with a clear message. They don't want a public housing development in their backyards. And they delivered that message straight to State Member Matthew Morris and a representative from Housing New South Wales. Passions boiled over. Jean Brown has lived next door to the site for her whole life. The group is concerned about plans to build a 3-storey housing department unit block among these homes. Residents claim they haven't been consulted and haven't had enough time to comment. It's all spurred by the federal government's stimulus efforts. In order to get the money, housing projects need to be built by the end of next year. Something that doesn't sit well with residents.
We could have at least been warned that something like this was going to happen. I'm just very upset about the whole matter.
They've got to scrap the whole thing and start over again.
While nothing was resolved today, the concerns will be conveyed to the Minister.
We'll be seeking to get some changes made to ensure that the project better fits the site, and we do our best to alleviate as many of the concerns that have been raised with us.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News. Finally, some progress on the much-anticipated F3 link to Branxton, with a group chosen to build the first section from the freeway to Curry. Work is expected to start early next year.
We'll create over 800 jobs, which is great for the economy, and it's great for reducing congestion in the Hunter.
The tender process for the next section, Curry to Branxton, is still ongoing, but both the federal and state government are confident the entire $1.7 billion project will be ready to take vehicles in 2013.
We're looking forward to both aspects of the project to be completed on budget and in time, and the end result is reduction of congestion on Hunter roads.
Meanwhile, upgrades on the Hunter Valley Rail Corridor are also moving forward, with $20 million worth of improvement work starting today. The line will be closed for 3 days to allow 70 projects to be carried out, including work on the third track between Whittingham and Maitland. The shutdown will also allow crews to connect the rail line to the third coal terminal at Kooragang. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
This isn't your average group of school leavers. These Year 12 students from Macquarie College in Newcastle are passing up a trip to the Gold Coast for what they say will be the trip of a lifetime to Vanuatu.
We're going to go and work in a little primary school, and we're going to fix some classrooms. The classrooms they have at the moment are in great deal of disrepair. So we're going to do some concreting, we're going to lay some lino over that, we're going to put some walls in some classroom, and we're going to fix some of the desks and chairs that are there, and we're going to camp in the school and the village, Olwe, while we're there doing our service project.
The 19 students are paying their own way and collectively have raised about $5,000 to spend improving the village.
I particularly don't want to get wasted for my Year 12 schoolies, so I found this was a good option to do instead.
It's just a chance for us to give back to a community and to help others less fortunate than ourselves.
It's a lot better than going up to Gold Coast and just wasting your lives away.
The group flies out on Thursday. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
When news broke that the Melbourne Storm was withdrawing its support of a team on the Central Coast, the Country Rugby League got straight on the phone to Newcastle. 2 months later, it has the Knights on board.
Central Coast, through Country Rugby League, managed by their general manager of the Central Coast, will run a New South Wales Cup team, of which we will partner and supply NRL players to.
In effect, it reintroduces a reserve grade team through the Knights football structure, with players not involved in NRL duty dropping back to the second tier team.
Some of our stronger players who are closer to first grade are looking for a better competition level, and definitely better competition to test them so we get a fairer indication of where they're at.
What it also does is keep a strong league presence in an important region for the Code, and that's something that also appeals to the Knights, who've signed on for a minimum of 5 years.
It supplied a number of players to us. It's a huge rugby league town and has a lot of potential there, and we don't think that anyone's done the right thing by it over recent years, and we intend to do that.
The Knights have stressed, however, it won't diminish their strong association with the Newcastle Rugby League. The new team will be called the Central Coast Crusaders and should have its head coach named by the end of the week. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Contract time is rarely easy, but the Jets felt the need to state their case in relation to negotiations with captain Matt Thompson, who revealed on NBN last night the club didn't offer him a deal to stay.
It's not fair to say that we haven't offered or haven't spoken to him, because he was the very first player that I wanted the club to talk to.
Something the club say they did, only for Thompson to delay negotiations.
He's clearly outlined his desire to experience other outlets on a number of occasions.
Thompson is set to sign with the new Melbourne team this week on a deal the Jets say they simply couldn't match.
I can tell you that I've had discussions with his agent and I conveyed it to him. That's just too great an amount, and I won't insult the player if he's not interested in signing with the club.
It's a drama the coach would prefer to do without, considering he's already got enough distractions to deal with ahead of Sunday's match against Wellington. Although the likes of Joe Wheelhouse and Nikolai Topor-Stanley appear to have shaken off injury niggles, there's a level of concern over strikers Sean Rooney and Michael Bridges.
They've given them basically till Friday to join in the team. If they can't by then they won't play on the weekend.
The year's been horrible with injuries for me, but I've been relatively lucky in the last 7 years, riding at the highest level there is in the world, on the best bulls in the world.